Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast, We Ballroom, hosted by Ricky Taylor Dubavik and myself, Dan Spach.
Hi guys, this is going to be episode 4 of Why We Ballroom. Today we're just going to be discussing different topics between each other, different questions that have to do with the ballroom world and ballroom dancing.
Yes, before I wanted to start, I would like to wish everyone happy holidays. Stay safe, stay at home with your loved ones and friends and family. Now, Ricky, first question for you. I have a bad habit of interrupting the teacher, but it's not really interrupting. I would finish their sentences. Like they would be explaining something and I would nod along and try to finish their sentence. Do you find that like not a good thing to have? Like I I think it's I think it's a bad habit. I don't know what other teachers think because I genuinely think that the different teachers have different opinions on it. Some teachers might be okay with it. Some teachers might not be okay with it. But what is your take on this habit of mine?
I mean, I think definitely different teachers will take it different ways. As a teacher, of course, you don't want to have your students interrupting you, but it's also good when you understand that they are understanding what you're talking about. So if you have a sentence and they're kind of finishing the sentence for you, at least it's a good thing to know that they know what you're talking about and you guys are on the same page. Some teachers definitely might see it as disrespectful. Coming from a student's perspective myself, I also have this habit. I try not to do it out loud though. I'll try to finish the sentence in my head, try to understand what they're telling me, and figure out what they're talking about. Usually, the only time I will verbally express that is if I can tell they're looking for a certain word, and especially I find this when I'm taking a lesson from somebody who English is their second language. I only speak English, it's my first language. And I am just applause all teachers who come from other countries and have to learn English and even travel to America or other English speaking countries and teach in English because I know it's very hard for them. So most of the time, I only will express verbally and try to kind of help them finish a sentence if I feel like I really know what they're going to say and I can see they're looking for a certain word. That perfect word to help them explain exactly what they want to tell me or my partner. So in that way, I try to be helpful with it and not so much as like, oh, I'm finishing your sentence for you. Definitely, a lot of teachers will see, like myself, I don't really mind it that much if I'm teaching and a student finishes my question. Other teachers might feel differently, but definitely if you feel like you're trying to help them, then I don't really think it's a bad habit for sure. And that they probably will just see it as you helping them, which is what you want to do in the first place. But definitely, if you think that they don't need any help and that sometimes they're waiting, even if they're trying to still come up with the right word, they want to do it. So definitely think about that first before you open your mouth verbally. And I try to think about the same thing because I have the same habit. I always just want to finish what they're saying. And then on the other 50% of the time, if you feel like it is going to help them, then definitely I would say it's not such a bad habit to have.
Yes, that's good to hear from another teacher that they have or a student that they have a similar habit. Yes. When I teach and my students, let's say, finish the sentences for me, I I see that they know what I'm talking about. They understand what I'm trying to tell them, which I think moves the class faster, further along. But I'm just standing there for the next few minutes of me trying to come up with a word. They think they think of it for me, and it's way easier that way. I, for anyone listening, I never mean it in a disrespectful way. It's just something that gets into my head because I know what you're talking about. I want you to know what I'm talking about. Instead of always saying, yep, yes, agreed, I would finish the sentence for you just to let you know that I understand what you're talking about. Um, interesting question that my coach loves to ask his students. What do you think separates the mass dancers, like the dancers that are average, to, let's say, the final dancers? What is the big component that you look for example, if you're judging? What separates the good dancers from the average dancers? We like to call it like the mass dancers.
Um, well, I definitely think there's a lot of ways you can answer this question. And every single teacher, every single judge will have their own answer. I haven't had as much judging experience as I have had teaching experience, but I think every competitor, when you go to a competition, especially if you're watching around that you didn't make, so you're watching maybe the people who are ahead of you, or maybe you're watching another category that maybe it's your favorite category to watch. I think every dancer places all the couples in the final in their head, or say you're watching the semi and you're kind of counting who you think you would put in the final and see if you're right with what the judges put. I think everybody does that. So in that sense, we all kind of have our own little judging tendencies. And for me, I can't say I have just one thing that separates the top tier dancers in our dance world to the rest of us that are trying to make it there. But definitely, like, it so depends on your personality. My personality, being grown up in America and being raised by American parents, is very, very different than most of the other people that I'm competing against and most of my other dance friends, because usually they're either born in a different country or their parents were born in another country. And definitely a mentality and personality can be different, which is what makes our dance world so amazing and awesome, because we have so many different cultures and upbringings. For me, with that being said, I am much more of a emotional dancer. And because I'm an emotional dancer, I love it when I see other emotional dancers, and not just going out there and just smiling the whole dance or having different facial expressions. Like, for me, different facial expressions is not emotions. It's part of it, but when you can really, really see it in the dancing, you can see it in between the dances. You can see it just in the eye connection between one partner to another. When they're both emotionally expressing, for me, I can tell right away that that couple will most likely end up doing a little bit better than maybe a couple who doesn't have that emotional connection with each other, with the judges, with the audience, with their self and their own dancing, even though their dancing could be absolutely beautiful, very clean, very technical, very precise. That dancing is amazing. I love watching that dancing. But as an emotional person and an emotional dancer myself, when I see, maybe I'm not using the right word with emotional, but I think most of the listeners will understand what I mean by that. When you see a couple emoting together, it's so hard to take your eyes off of them. And as judges, it is so hard to turn off the human part of your brain that feels emotions, because judges want to be, we expect judges to be robots. We expect judges to look at every single couple equally and judge perfectly equally with every single couple they look at. But judges are humans. They have emotions too. And when one couple are dancing emotionally with each other, with the audience, with everybody, that will rub off on the judge. The judge will be able to feel that when they're watching them, and the judges can't help but feel it. Once they can feel that emotion, they're already emotionally attached to that couple and is more likely to bring them back to the next round, because they want to have that feeling again. And that is just human nature. It doesn't have to do with that person. Even though we want judges to be robots, we can't expect them to be. And I think that is one thing in particular that can separate the very high level dancers from the rest of us, because everybody can have good technique. It's not easy, but everybody can get to a point where they have good technique. Everybody can put on a beautiful dress, have beautiful hair and makeup, a beautiful couple image. everybody is dancing to the same music. Everybody has the opportunity to create whatever routine and choreography they want. But once we're all on that level, there's a point when that music turns on that you have to separate yourself from everybody else. And emotionally dancing for me is one of the first things that I see as a dancer. And if one day I do have the opportunity to become a judge, I know it will be one of the first things that I recognize in a couple and will want to bring them back to the next round for, if I think that they are a good couple in general and I want to see them perform. I want to see them dance again in the next round.
Yes, I completely agree. The emotional feeling that the judges feel, even when you're watching the competitors dance, the atmosphere really adds. That's, for example, watching a video of a competition and being at the competition is completely two different feelings because you're not there to catch the actual atmosphere, the actual emotions that dancers are presenting to you. So, yes, but again, guys, different judges look at different things.
Definitely. There's so many things that can separate dancers from everybody else. There's so many
Hmm.
things that I could mention, but if I have to just talk about one little piece, definitely emotional connection is a huge part of that, but there's so many other things that the top dancers have that the other dancers may not have. So every judge, any person you talk to, any coach could answer this question completely differently.
Yes, yes. Going back to when you said about thinking about what couples will make it into the final. I My personal opinion on this is if you do this before the competition, let's say you're sitting at home looking at the heat list or looking at the couples that have entered and you're making up the final from your house, you in my opinion, you already lost. You already did not make it into the final because you should be thinking about what you have to do at the competition, not about, oh, who's going to make it into the final, who I'm going to lose to. If you place yourself in the final, that's nice. But still, in the back of your head, you know that that one couple is going to be dancing against you that you are terrified of. So don't make up the final before the competition. After, if you are looking at different age categories that you're not in, you're just watching them dance, or if you unfortunately did not make it to the next round, then you're making up the finals or the placings. Then that's fine. Then you're exercising the judging side of you.
I would definitely agree with that I think every young dancer has been in that position where, like, I want to say when I was in junior 1 and junior 2, so I was about 13, 14 years old. You're dancing against the same couples all the time. You are going to the same circuit of competitions, same judges are seeing you. You kind of get in the habit of seeing the heat list before the competition and just imagining where you could place, who's going to be in the final. You see who your competitors are, kind of think about how you place against them against the last competition. And there's absolutely no harmful intention behind that, especially when you're young. But I think when you get a little bit older, you start to realize that when you put yourself in that position to assume things before the competition has even started, you definitely are putting yourself in a losing position because, first of all, you're already giving yourself expectations that if you don't meet them, you're going to be automatically disappointed. And you're setting yourself up for a bad position because you go into the competition, your mindset, the day of the competition, when you wake up, you're preparing. There's a little part of your brain that will start to creep in that will say, what if that doesn't happen? What if somebody else shows up that's not on the heat list? What if we don't have a good day and we're not dancing well and then we don't make that placement or that round? And I think that is a huge part of competitors' psychology that is an issue. And I'm pretty sure every single competitive dancer has faced this issue probably many times before. I know I have for so many years, actually. And it's something I'm trying to work on. But definitely, a little just piece of advice is to try not to place yourself in a certain position before you go to the competition, because as you said, as Dan said, you should just be focusing on your dancing, yourself, the way you feel, the way you want to perform and compete that day, regardless of who you're dancing against. And we've all heard this before, is that your biggest competitor is yourself. It really is a true statement. It's definitely easier to say that than to live it. I think that's another thing that really separates dancers industry from the mass dancers underneath, because the highest dancers have gotten to that point, regardless of their result, where they understand that their biggest competitor is themselves, and they know to not bother themselves with other couples, with other ideas, with other things that's happening that day or at the competition, to just focus on themselves, because they got to the point where they understand that that is the only way they will be successful. And a lot of other dancers, I faced this many times myself, where I'm thinking way too much about the other people. I'm thinking way too much about the atmosphere that day and what's happening around me, instead of focusing just on me and my partner. And like I said, I think that's another thing that will separate the mass dancers from the, I don't know if you could call them the high dancers, the elite dancers, whatever you want to call them, the top few that everybody knows, you know?
Yes. Yes. Uh, Speaking of competitions and just thinking about the right things at a competition, something that I used to do, which wasn't really correct, is when I'm actually dancing on the floor, I would have like a few goals that I would like to achieve at the competition. And while I am dancing, if there was like a thought in my head that pops up, I was like, oh, I worked on this when I practiced. And let's say, oh, I'll think of a good example. Let's say you're doing a certain step, you're coming up to a certain step in your routine on the competition, and a thought pops in your head where you worked on that step. Your teacher always yelled at you about that step, and you're like, oh, okay, I have to perform this step very well. And the teacher's gonna say, oh, good job. Don't give in to that thought, because that thought is going to throw you off so hard from your overall main goal. My smooth teacher, Dimo Pogibel, he gave me a nice example. Let's say you are driving home from, let's say, work, dance, anything, and you get stuck in traffic. The first thought that pops into your head is, oh my God, I'm going to get home late. I'm not going to be able to do a certain amount of things that I wanted to do. Then your whole schedule gets messed up. Similar thing is happening here. You have this schedule that you're going by when you're dancing at a competition. And when those thoughts pop into your head, they slow you down. You perform not as good as you would have performed if you just stick to your schedule, stick to the ideas that you wanted to work on to show at the competition. And yeah, you cannot do more at a competition than you did at practice. Yes, sometimes some couples have adrenaline kick in, and the atmosphere kind of helps them perform better, but the only thing that they're doing better is doing that certain, they're like the things that they were thinking about. They're just going to do them better because they're more confident, they have more energy, they have more they have more motivation. That's going to be the only way that they're going to be dancing better.
I think I 100% agree with that. I have faced that many times. And it doesn't even have to be just in the competition. It could be during rounds. It could be run through, whatever you like to call it, even just a normal practice. If you understand, like, oh, we just had a lesson, we're working on this piece of choreography or one move in particular, and you go to practice the next day and you're so stressed about that one move and trying to make it as good as you did in the lesson or however you learned it, it can mess up your mentality so much. And I think for some people, I think it depends on the person, because if I take my couple, for example, my husband Alex and I, when he thinks about something that he has to do, his brain works in the way that he has to understand it 100%, put it in his body many times, and basically it just stays there. It clicks, it's there. Every time he does it, it's going to be there. Unfortunately, I am not the same way. I can feel dancing very well, which is kind of an odd statement, but I can feel when I'm dancing with my coach or whoever I'm taking the lesson from. I know how it feels, and visually, when somebody shows me something, I can learn something much quicker than if you're just explaining it to me. That's the type of learner that I am. But then when I have to go to the practice and I'm by myself and I have no teacher there to show me this is what it has to look like, it can be very difficult. So when I think about a movement that I know I have the expectation of myself, it has to be this way, I mess up my mentality so much. Alex has no idea what's going on. He's like, you danced this move perfectly yesterday. What's going on today? And I always dance my best in the practice, in the rounds, in the competition, when I just let myself be. When I let my body move naturally, move freely, move with my partner, because thank goodness he knows what he's doing. So he's kind of like the leader and I'm just the beautiful follower for him. And when I let myself be that way and I relax my brain and I don't stress about, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late for work, my whole day is messed up because of one move. And I understand I'm dancing this part, it's coming up in the routine. First thing I think of is I'm going to enjoy it the most that I can. If it goes wrong, you know what, it's fine. I'm probably going to do it about 1,500 more times anyway. And if it goes right, then thank you, it went right. And we move on to the next part of our routine. So definitely I can relate to that issue so much. And definitely I think the best way to get over it is to try to, I wouldn't say ignore it, but to not stress about it, to not worry about it, to not think about it. Just let your body do what it's going to do. Whether it works or not, you're going to learn something from that experience and it's going to help you in the future.
Yes, yes, that is something that I completely agree with. Last question. Who is someone that you look up to, let's say in the ballroom world? It could be a certain amount of people, it could be one person, just someone that you looked up to or look up to currently.
I would say, obviously, there's so many quote unquote legends that I could list. But obviously, I have my coach, Jonathan Wilkins. Of course, I look up to him when I watch his old videos from before he was retired. Absolutely love watching him. Again, he's a very emotional dancer. If you watch him in the videos when he was younger, you can just see right away how much he's feeling it. You can, even when you're taking a lesson from him, you can see that. He might not be explaining it. He can be explaining something very technical, but even when he's explaining something very technical, his whole face and body is so emotional. It's actually very funny. But besides him, and of course I love watching his videos, he's my coach, so I can be very biased towards that. One couple, specifically one person that I didn't even pay attention to so much until the last 3 or 4 years have been professional Latin couple Trolls and Ina. Mm-hmm. Specifically for me, of course, Ina, I'm probably going to say her last name wrong, Ina Jeliskova, is one of my favorite dancers ever. Of course, she's still dancing right now, so it's so amazing that I still get to watch her dance because there's so many legends that I was never able to watch dance. When I watch her in person, I am so lucky that she's even located in the same country as me because there's a bigger opportunity. I'm going to see her dance at other competitions. I have had the greatest opportunity to take a few lessons from her when I was dancing Latin and a few lessons from Trolls. I absolutely loved the lessons. But not only her dancing, but her personality. She's one of the sweetest people I have ever met. I've only seen her face to face a few times, but every time we see each other in the studio, in the competition, she always remembers me. She always even talks to me, has a conversation with me. And for me, just being little Ricky Taylor Dubovic compared to Ina Jeliaskova, for me, it's like a superstar moment. Like, I absolutely love her dancing. I love her personality. I love her emotionalness in her dancing. She's one of the dancers for me who's the most emotional dancer in a professional Latin final in any major competition. Every time she walks onto that floor, you know you're going to get an amazing performance, not just because of her technical skills, not just because of her body actions or the shape of her, because she puts 150% of her emotion into every move with herself, with trolls, with the audience, with everybody who's watching her. And on top of that, she's genuinely one of the nicest dancers I've ever met in my entire life. And to me, I see her in such this limelight, this high position. And she's so kind and caring that she takes time to talk to anybody who comes up to her, to take a picture with her, just to, even me, I'm sure she barely remembers me, but when she sees me, she'll make that little connection, even if it's just a wave. And to me, it's like the biggest thing in the world. Just imagine if you're walking by and Ricardo Cocky and Yulia Zakarenchenko just waved to you and said hello. Like, you would probably like be like, how do they even know me? You know, like, for me, it's like a superstar moment like that. And to me, Ina is such a superstar in my eyes. And it's so sweet, and it melts my heart that she will make these connections with people like me, like you. And in my opinion, her dancing is absolutely amazing. Every single dance I've ever seen her do, I absolutely love. So it's a combination of her dancing and her personality and her uniqueness, because she's one of the few dancers that I've seen, that I've really paid attention to in the last couple years, 3-4 years. Her dancing is absolutely so unique. You will never see anybody dancing like Ina. And that's exactly what I love about her. It's why I look up to her, because imagine, even myself, if I have my own unique style, I absolutely love watching unique dancers because it makes you want to continue watching them. And for me, I would love to be that dancer. I have my own unique style that makes people want to watch me, that makes me enjoy my dancing. So her uniqueness, it makes her stand out. Her personality is just an amazing personality, absolutely so kind. And the fact that she is a professional Latin finalist in every major competition, she's already top 3 in the final. Her dancing is amazing. The couple is amazing. Physically looks amazing. It's like, Trolls and Ina, definitely one of my top couples ever in the history of dancing. Same with Ina. She's one of my top Latin dancers, Latin lady dancers in the history of everybody. And I think definitely when they retire, they will become legends. And I am so honored to even know them and be able to have taken lessons from them and have that personal connection with them, even though it's so small. To me, it's like the biggest thing. So she's definitely probably one of the top people in the whole entire ballroom industry that I look up to.
That's nice. Yes. Well, thank you for sharing, Reiki. Um, guys, we have to wrap up. Happy holidays to everyone. Again, stay safe. I hope everyone gets their most wanted, most important wishes granted. And see you next week.
Bye, guys.